Hello YouTubians! Today we're going to talk about one of the greatest dangers in any woman's life, and that danger, of course, is childbirth. In most cultures, as long as the woman is married, she is more or less obligated to give birth to children. A lot of women throughout history have been pregnant more or less constantly since they got married. And expose yourself to that danger every time. What I've found is that there's quite a lot of things written about the actual birth. There's much less written on pregnancy itself. That's a bit difficult because nowadays a lot of people talk about child's health being dependent on the care of the mother during the pregnancy, and there isn't much written historically about that. The woman in earlier times in history didn't have many ways to find out whether she was pregnant or not. All from peeing on barley or wheat to injecting frogs with urine. Crazy things like that. But of course it has always been the signs of the body that have been the safest way of knowing whether you are pregnant or not. If your menstruation have not come as it usually does, even though that can have a lot of reasons, or if you just start to grow. And this thing with the woman starting to grow has been seen a bit differently upon throughout history as well, and it seems to have changed a bit with the trends in fashion. In the 1700s, in the nobility, women were so tightly laced into corsets that probably could cause quite a lot of stillborns and spontaneous abortion. And if you look in the 1600s, when the fashion trend said that you should be wider hipped and bellied, they had pillows to fill the dresses out. That, of course, enhanced the chance of giving birth to a healthy child, because they just had to stop wearing the pillows around their bodies. Another problematic thing with the history of pregnancy is that it hasn't been very common to talk about women's stuff. I guess that it must have been some knowledge passed on from mother to daughter and from older women to younger women, but there's nothing written down about that. But it would be very understandable if a woman met her pregnancy with a bit of fear for the unknown. And even if she had done it before, fear for her life, because it was dangerous. It was really dangerous to give birth to children. Also, in Christianity, it's said that the pain that the woman suffers during labor is the punishment for original sin. Since Eve tempted Adam with the forbidden fruit, all women after her should be punished for it. And that could make just anyone feel scared of this, especially when you really, really believe that. That, together with the mystery of life, and that all research have been done on men, and men's have been seen as the original, and the women have just been not fully developed men. The fact that the clergy mostly have been men, that have created a lot of superstition around the pregnancy and around childbirth. More or less everywhere there have been different measures taken to make the labor easier or safer or faster. Now we come into the midwifery part, and I will talk about that in a much later video. But there are a lot of things that people have done. How you decorate the room where the labor takes place, prayer. There's a story about women from here where I live, and we are talking about the 1700s nowadays. The story is that when you're at your largest, you should take a pebble, choose a really nice, round, smooth, pretty pebble, and place it on your belly. Then the child would start playing with the pebble and recognize that as its toy. And when it's time for the labor, you just tie a ribbon around it and tie it around your knee. then the child will go after it to catch it, and it will be a much easier labour. You know, as I say, superstition. And in this superstition thing, we also have the matter of churching of women. As soon as a woman have given birth, she should be alone and resting for some time. The most common time is for 40 days, but it could be anywhere from 40 days up to 6 weeks, when she is more vulnerable and more easily accessed by dark forces or by fairies and all those things you can't explain. And some descriptions of it has to do with the fact that she have given birth to a heathen, to a non-Christian, because that's of course what the child is. So she is being cast out of the congregation. She's not allowed to take communion, she's not allowed to go to church, she's not allowed to do any work. Preferably, she will not even leave the room where she is. The good thing is that people obviously have understood that women need to rest. The ceremony of the churching is different in all cultures. In some cultures, it's just a lighting of a candle and saying thank you for letting me and my child survive. In other cultures, it's a bigger thing. If we then talk about the actual birth, the most dangerous thing, of course, is the lack of medical knowledge. For most of history, the labour has been taken care of by women, midwives and family. And in the 1700s, the physicians started to mess with it all, and when they did, maternal deaths increased. They killed a lot of people, the doctors, especially after pathological studies. They could go directly to a woman in labour. Of course, they then transmitted a lot of diseases. Well, what about contraceptives then? If she didn't want to give birth to children, they have not been as effective. And there has been really strange stuff going on. And most things were inserted into the woman's vagina. Anything from honey and sodium carbonate to dung and cabbage. Different kinds of condoms have been available for a very long time, but they have not primarily been about preventing pregnancy. It has more been to prevent the spread of diseases, so that the men wouldn't spread diseases to their wives after being with prostitutes. Really thick rubber, intestines, or linen cloth at times. Just imagine that. A linen cloth wrapped around a penis and then try to get it into the vagina. You better be quite lubricated for that to work, don't you think? So, what could a woman do then if she didn't want to get so many children? Depending on which class in society you belong to, you were married at different ages. The richer you were, the earlier you were married. If you waited for a long time before getting married, you could actually decrease the number of children you otherwise would have given birth to. And if you keep on breastfeeding for a long time after giving birth, it's also a smaller risk for you to get pregnant again. You can be, it's not safe, but that's a way. And if you didn't want to give birth to any children, or if you had done your job and you didn't want to give birth to any more children, more or less the only option for a woman was to, as Shakespeare said it, get thee to a nunnery. As I said, history is full of women who have been pregnant more or less constantly. There are stories about women giving birth to 10, 15 children. And not very unusual then that they die at the age of 35 or 40 because their bodies have been all used up, so it couldn't take any more. If you didn't want to give birth to any children, perhaps it was easier to become a nun. Hope you've learned something new today. See you soon, I hope. Bye.